I've got an idea for this next show coming up at Cal called Tiny Things. Pretty quick turnaround. So what I've got here, you see these are tea bags that, used, let them dry, emptied them of contents, ironed them, and did a little watercolor ground on them to get them ready. I want to do a painting on them, so very small. Document this process with you guys. I'm going to just roughly outline this tea bag. The theme is mental health, taking care of yourself. So the first idea I had was just a mug, and then I had other ideas, thinking about the things that either I personally do to keep my mental health going, or that people I know and love do. Obviously, since these are in tea bags, a mug I thought would be very applicable. Yeah, that's the word. The good thing about working this tiny is you just don't have room for too many details, so you've got to be selective. Those book corners get cut off. I may just continue them outside into the glued edge, even down here. If you're watching this and you've done any miniature paintings, if you have any tips, please do share, as the struggle here I'm having. All right, I'm gonna call that fairly good. That is what I need to see. Now, the next stop is to start laying in those values. With it being so small, I'm going to have to be more precise with those. I'm looking over at my grayscale image and simplifying these value shapes that I'm trying to represent here. I'm using an H pencil so far for this. I don't want anything too dark just yet, as I'm trying to find my way around the values I need to create. All right, I'm going to try. This is a colorless blender for colored pencils. I use it sometimes in graphite pencils as well. I'm going to really smooth this out so that the marks aren't too distracting to me at this point. All right, let's continue on with the B. I'm really going to work on this back wall. It's pretty dark, and it helps define the mug. Let's see, how about the 2B now? These are Mars Lumograph black pencils. These darker ones, the other ones are just Lumograph. So they are my current favorites, as they're nice and dark without too much shiny. Back to the colorless blender. I generally don't use it as much when I'm working on a piece that's going to be graphite, just because I like the look better in that case when I've taken my time to build up the values. But since this is not the end result, this is in fact a means to the end, I will take shortcuts. As I squint at this, I'm starting to see the form of the cup. I need to bring this shadow over a little bit. So I've gone back to the B and go back into the background there and just trying to really get all of that background covered, even all the little nooks and crannies. I'm really pleased that the label is starting. There's a kind of a printed area on this, or a painted area. Dark orange mug with a yellow, what looks like a label on it almost. And then the design is on that painted label. And so I'm starting to get enough value in there that I can see that. And that makes me happy. That gives me hope that this will be doable. And come back with this stuff. the Nickel Azo Yellow. Literally gonna put a drop, dip my paintbrush in it. All right, so while that's drying, let's work on another one. It's similar, but not the same. So the same window. This one also has the same wall right there, and the cool thing, since this is a clear glass full of water, is that you have the dark wall on this side inside the glass, and then it flips down here, and that's kind of a neat little optical thing. Now I don't have, so this is going to be dark, and down here it's going to flip. So that one's going to be Self-Care 1, unless I can come up with a better name, and maybe that's something. But if that one's Self-Care 1, this would be Self-Care 2, maybe TOO. If you have any suggestions for titles, I would greatly appreciate it. Leave them down in the comments. Now the shadow on this glass is something interesting. So in the reduced value, this is the only difference between the table and the shadow is this reflection through the glass. Another way to blend is to go over that softer pencil with a harder one. It needs more values to describe it. I'm going to bring in some value on this side of the bottle because that is probably one of the lighter areas. There will be well, there's not much of a color change in that area. I'm trying to think of different ways to reinforce that edge. And there's not a whole lot of difference. There's just enough, and it's a challenge to get just enough. And you have just a little area. And you can see that since yesterday, I've done a little work. On top of the golden nickel azo yellow, I did 3 layers of Daniel Smith transparent watercolor ground. The reason I did 3 was because I tried doing a little colored pencil on it. That wasn't working, erased it, ended up taking off the watercolor ground, and so needed a new layer. This morning, I worked a little bit on this one, getting in some watercolors, using them rather opaquely. And those are my little swatches there. Here is the reference I took. Let me know if you would like that reference, and I'll make it available. Okay, I think I'm gonna work a little bit on that table edge, and then the book, and then I may move on, although I would like this to be a little darker in there. I have not used any black yet, so I may bring in some black watercolor. Alright, another thing I'm using is a little bit of Doc Martens bleed proof white as kind of an addition to make things a little more opaque, since these are all watercolors. It's a bit too bright or too light. Let's make that darker horizontal with these marks. This is rather transparent here and pretty wet, so marks aren't even going to show. So far I'm really happy with this, and I think that's going to translate really nicely to the tea bag. Doesn't take very long at all, which is nice. I'm so used to projects taking, weeks and weeks and weeks, that a little instant gratification is kind of novel. All right, that lower book has got some green on it, and I'm going to use some green that I don't have to mix. And if I can pop that thing out, I can tell you what green it is. Just for grins, Green Appetite. I'm mixing it over here in my tray. So I'm going to use some of the bleed proof white to lighten it up. It's still pretty thin. Trying to hint at the letters without actually drawing them. I think that's coming out nice. Working at this size, it's amazing sometimes just the difference a single mark can make. Let's mix some highlights there. The mug, it's so shiny. Always looks darker when it's wet, so let this dry and see, and if it does, well, then that's what I'll do. Start by layering in. I'll also do it on the table over here because they're pretty much the same. It's a reflection inside that shadow. Just gradually build it up. This is kind of, I think, the fun part. I'm going to use the Titan Buff inside the glass. But this is it's a recycled glass, so it kind of has this decided blue-green cast to it. A little more of the buff over here, I think, just to increase the opacity. The glass here where it is reflecting wall back there, where it's got the water down here, gives us that lovely optical illusion. I'm gonna come down here with the same color and start making those shadows pop. All right, let's make some of the glass color, and I'm gonna start with cerulean and then add a little bit of the bleed proof white for opacity. And I think it's going to need a hint of something yellowy, maybe a cadmium yellow. Let's try that in this glass. Yeah, that's going to be a good color. This is the color from the mug, and I think I will use it also. It's not quite the right color, but I think it's close enough. They'll look like they belong together, right? I'm gonna add some bleed proof white to it for the label. All right, for the lid, some of the bleed proof white with Moon Glow. Let's try this. Yeah, that's better. I could still probably use a little darker. Let's bring up some light in the curtains. More white in here, just making those highlights pop just a little more. The edge of this bottle cap, right, is a bit defined by the curtain behind it. So I'm trying to build that color right there, blue-gray deep in that background. Looks, well, it doesn't look like text. We will go back and fix that later. Just trying to approximate some writing. just didn't quite work, did it? There we go. Yeah, there we go. That's actually a great improvement. Let's do a few more highlights here.